you so much for having me here today. I'm so short. I wish I could just stand in the middle there, but I can't because I have a PowerPoint. So today I was given the honor to speak in front of you about the issues of identity that we have in research and academia. And I hope to walk with you in this and that we can continue to grow this conversation. So who am I? My name is Ndoni Mcunu. Unfortunately, I'm still doing my PhD at WITS. And my focus is on ecology, biology, climate change, and agriculture. And so I've been in two different worlds. I've been in the academic world, and then I also got exposed to the NGO/business/socialpreneurship world. So this was my other side. I'm in civil leadership and social entrepreneurship. I founded a nonprofit organization called Black Women in Science. And I've also done a lot of research and articles for scientific journals such as Nature, such as The Conversation, asking me around how do we unify the voices, especially around women and especially around Africans, South Africans, or Africans in general, in how do they actually deal with the issues of their voices not being heard in academia and research. So there I was, out of my master's, excited that, oh my gosh, I finally have my master's, this means I'm making cash. No, I was not making a cent. I struggled to get a job. I realized that actually what I've been studying and what they're gonna make me do in the real world is actually not that much fun. And I wanted to stand out, I wanted to have a different voice in the sciences, and I was lacking academic support and understanding. So it was a general concept or an assumption that as soon as you are done with your master's, do your PhD. So I feel that that on its own is a problem, is an issue in the identity of research and academia, because we are not being kind of encouraged. You're not coming in of it saying, you know what, I can't wait until I'm done with my master's and I do my PhD. You're just like, oh, okay, well, I have nothing to do, let me just enroll. And that's a problem because then the cycle is not complete. It's not a holistic cycle. So I just wanted to give some stats around women, science, and research. So this was a journal called The Scientific American. And you can see here that, I don't think it's that clear for you guys, but it says research workforce in the region, in Sub-Saharan Africa, 29% are females and 71% are males. If we look into the population in South Africa, the population amongst Africans, 39.9% are African females and 30.9% are white males. And if we look into the degrees in which people are graduating in, you'll see that highest graduation and enrollment is in education. The orange one is science, is social sciences, the gray one is engineering, and the yellow one is sciences. This is just enrollment. So in South Africa, when you talk about Black women, when you talk about science, it's a very sensitive topic. And it's also a topic that you really don't know how to actually address without kind of sounding aggressive, but trying to get the point right through to understanding that there's a huge challenge in the amount of Black females that are enrolled in the postgraduate qualification. Most importantly, when you start speaking about them getting into their postgraduate qualification, there's a huge challenge. Now you're not seeing any Black females that are enrolled in professorship or in PhD enrollments, and that's a huge concern. And why are we not doing anything about that? So if you look into the stats from 2005, 2010 to 2015, you can see here that these are the Black academics. So as the years have gone in, they are increasing the Black academics into academia, right? Which is good because all of the policies and all of the investments that we have in our country is focusing on empowering Black people to get into these roles. So then there are a lot of articles by Nature that says Black academics soon to outnumber white researchers in South Africa. A very good article that's written by Sarah Wild, but there is also a misleading concept when you start talking about science and technology. When you start looking into those statistics of women generally, and then when you get into the gender, the race conversation around this article, there's a huge statistics that are lacking still in women. If you look into organizations such as, if you look into the South African one over here, this is the Academy of Science of South Africa, right? You have 24% which are women and 31% which are women in membership and in governance. 24 and 31%. That means there is a huge narrative that is not being spoken around diversifying the identity of research. And also, there's also another article. South Africa has tripled its black academics, black science PhD graduates over the last decade. It doesn't mean that we're still outnumbering. It doesn't mean there's a balance. It just means that it's growing. And this makes sense because of the amount of investment that's being put. So those are the statistics around it. And then I did a report. I was sitting around, I was like, okay, let me just do a report by the Global Gender Gap Report. If you go onto the site and you type in your country, you type in the field that you're in, you type in your age and you type in your race, they said that the only time that we will reach gender equality in our country with science engineering is when I am 198 years old. So these are real stats that we need to ask ourselves, who then is really telling the narrative if half of the population are women? Who then is telling the narrative if we are not there in most of the things? Stats. So hard. So, aside from the women conversation, I also started to realize that there's also an issue of when you search online and you search for research and science, you search for, I just did a TED talk on where are African leaders, and my question here was, if you had to go online now and you search top 10 scientists or top 10 business people, you will not find an African face there. So you as an African, moving gender, moving race, moving everything as an African, why is it that we are not in our elements when we speak about science? Why is it that our research doesn't make it to the crux of the topic and the crux of the discussions? So then I founded a nonprofit organization from my own really personal journey that I saw that, as I was growing up, I'd never been lectured by a black female. So who really is being represented in these societies, in these academic fields? And how do we change this? Even if it's a woman, I think it was one woman, which is Miss Dale Trotter. And so this is a concern for me in the sense of how do we actually make sure that we become advocates for this diversity in the issues of identity in research. So what we do is we try to promote and encourage black females to take up postgraduate qualifications. That's how I started the organization. And then I started realizing that although a lot of the policies are saying, let's promote women to take up these qualifications, the challenge we have is we actually don't know what they want to do. Because we haven't actually sat down with them to understand who are you? What are you about? We looked at the stats and then we said, okay, let's pump money into it. But we actually don't understand how do we then attract them and make them stay in the system. So I work with the NSTF and I work with the Department of Science and Technology and some mentorship programs with NRF. All right, so the fellowship is in Johannesburg and KwaZulu-Natal. We take up 100 BWS fellows every year, postgraduate fellows. Currently, we've trained over 250 females in the field, and these females are all in various science industries. So when I realized that, okay, so I have these amazing women, and obviously the Departments of Science and Innovation now wants to understand how to better support these women and just a general understanding of what do they actually think of research and academia, the identity of it that we're talking about today. First of all, they asked us, what is research? What is a researcher? So these are postgraduate students still asking, what is a researcher? You actually don't know what that means. The other one said, I don't want to only be a lecturer and publish all day. The other one, you'll only make money when you're 100 years old. The other one is reading all you do. The other one, I want to actually have a life. And the other one, you'll basically die here. And we did a needs analysis around them and said, what are the skills that you guys would like to have? Isn't this interesting? 71 want business development. 71. But in our science degrees, there's no business. So how are we going to make sure that they're staying in the system? They're going to go. They're going to go and work for Deloitte and work for all these industries that encourage them to apply their minds in another interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary measure. So, yeah, you know what I mean, guys? The second one was they would like to have research skills, which is 71%. Another interesting one for me was public speaking, which is very huge in the sciences. Why is our research not reaching your True Love and your Destiny magazines? There's something that we're not communicating right in our science. Science communication is something that is so vital in making sure that we can actually be heard and actually be seen as people that want to change the identity of research in making it cool or hip or I don't know what we're trying to do. And then we have scientific writing as well, which is huge because you have language issues here. You have major language issues in writing. I'm writing up and I'm dying. I'm sitting there, I'm just like, oh my word, a paragraph in English. It's so hard, it is so hard. But how do we actually make sure that, they have this kind of balance and they're making, then the other ones are networking, presentation, financial investments, which I think, personally, I think this is actually the top with business. It's just that we don't know. You only know it when you're working and you realize, why am I so broke? Why can't I handle my money? So then we came up with a Black woman in science leader. And we realized that the modern scientist actually wants these kind of things. This is how you attract them. You first of all have a scientific career, which is the foundation, your undergraduates. As soon as they start moving up, or even within the undergraduate, you start including some kind of business and some social well-being. We're seeing a lot of depression and a lot of psychological challenges that these ladies have in dealing with their backgrounds and the pressures that they have from coming from their homes, and all of a sudden they have to be leading, and not fail. So, okay, I'm gonna show you a video of what we do shortly.
And I founded a non-profit organization called Redefining Science. I established it in 2015 and it's been running for 3 years. In 2018, we then decided to refine and redo our branding and the objective of our organization. And we came up with a fellowship, the Redefining Science Fellowship. Within this fellowship, we have 3 workshops, which is your business and entrepreneurship, scientific writing and publishing, as well as how to build a proposal and make yourself relevant and brand yourself as a Black female business science.
Our approach is before conducting revolution, meaning that we don't just want our girls to be so used to writing on paper. We want to upgrade our girls, give them tablets, they need to be digital.
My name is Vanessa, and this is Lynette. Our sustainable project is about raising awareness about mental health in our community, to create a mental shift, and to cultivate the culture of safety.
Throughout these workshops, we try to show the relevance not only in the science sector, but also in the business and corporate sectors, and showing how they can be holistic in science. So throughout the year, we've had these workshops, and finally we finished these workshops, and we will be hosting a Black Women in Science dinner. And in this dinner, we will showcase the projects that these girls have been doing in both the community and business, and how they plan to actually change the economic situation in South Africa, as well as their own economic situations. So we look forward to seeing you this year.
Okay, so the second part of my conversation looks at, so these are the hot topics. It's women in research, it's diversity, it's the fourth industrial revolution, and it's young academics. These are the issues that we have to see. Why are they the hot topic? And then how do we then create this balance within these topics that we have? So why is it important? Why is it important to have a balanced identity in research? There haven't been enough case studies, nor are they celebrated enough really to have these conversations. So here's a story that I found quite interesting. NASA tried to send out an all-female space walk recently, and they had to stop that all-female space walk because they didn't have the right spacesuits for females. This is coming from NASA. This is coming from NASA, like our dream. So what is it? And one of the scientists, one of the astronauts said, it's in this case, it's easier and faster to change spacewalkers then reconfigure the spacesuit. And this is really interesting for me because then I started thinking, if NASA themselves cannot see the gender gap and what it actually means holistically, not just putting in money and saying, well, come and study, but changing the whole system, what does that actually mean? The second story that I love with all my heart is Dr. Glova. She recently just found a gene that causes a permanent hair loss amongst African women. And so for the longest time, there has been the wrong narrative that's being told about African women. You know when our hair goes back, ladies? You know when our hair goes back? That's a whole genetic thing that's already in your blood. It's not actually tension and traction increases it, but it's not actually something that happens by chance. Do you understand the difference in the products that are being sold, the language that's being sold? And the reason why she got interested in this is because why? It's because she has natural hair, she's black and she's female. So what is the narrative and how many topics are we having that are not actually being diversified? Because of the fact that we do not have these women or these diverse people in these positions and in these places. This young academic, Katie, and she found, what did she do? She was behind the first black hole image, 29 years old. So the more we reduce, the more we don't have the right ages, the right different races, the right background, we lack in actually finding out what people can discover. Another example is Professor Bakeng. She recently, you know, that whole UCT issue with her fake qualifications. For me, that was very interesting for me. One, it showed me that Professor Bakeng came from a very unique background. And she realized that I came out and I made it and I got my maths qualification, but I left a whole lot of people back home that don't understand mathematics. So how do I then redesign my research to be able to solve my community problems? And these are African people understanding the challenges that we have as Africans and redesigning their research to suit African needs. So it's a very big thing for me to do that. So the whole point of the organization, and I think I'm going to conclude just now, and we want to change these voices and say, I influence knowledge building through being a researcher. I have collaborated and learned to publish. I was supported through my graduate program. My institute funders and supervisors have given me the space to focus on my family. I now approach research in interdisciplinary manner. And in conclusion, these are the take-home points. Are we redesigning the models of science to suit and attract a new identity in research? The second point is, do we understand what the modern scientist actually is and what they want to attract them and stay and make them not leave the system? The next point is, what is the new identity in research, and are we adjusting to these new changes? Thank you.